been it's been a wild ride here lately, um, with everything that's been going on. So we're not even in the driver's seat. That's that's the part about it, bro. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we're along for the ride.
Right, right. I always say that. You know, at some point in time, the American people are going to stand up and say enough is enough. But I got a feeling we got to go through a lot more hell before everybody actually sees that.
Could be. Or maybe just a lot more outreach. I don't know.
One or the other, right? What's happening, people? What's going on, folks? How we doing? How we doing? How we doing? It is Sunday. It is Sunday. So if you are just tuning in with us, y'all know what Sunday is. If you're new here with us, it's usually Dexter Sunday. We get this opportunity to speak with Dexter Taylor, hear how his week is gone, and Dexter and I usually chop it up about some things that are going on in the news. What's going on with you, Dexter? How we doing, bro?
I'm doing all right. Can't complain. Well, I could complain, but the complaint department is short-staffed, like everything else in the state.
Right.
I tell you, speaking of politics, I've been, of course, taking special interest in what's happening with the New York Democrats. My mom has been keeping me up to date. You know, she'll call me and play me the latest YouTube videos and what have you. She's big on that. She's big on two-way news, Second Amendment news, and New York politics, because of course we have an attorney general who's in a lot of hot water for doing the dirty. Let's be honest,
Right.
the dirty. So yeah, that's what I've been paying attention to. But even I see on the AP Newswire, there's all kinds of things happening, like a tall ship smacked into the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah, man.
All types of stuff going on.
Yeah,
what the hell?
I was gonna. That's something I had on my paper here. I was gonna ask you if you heard about that.
I did hear. I read about that on the AP Newswire. Yeah, apparently it was a Mexican Navy ship. It was a training vessel.
Yeah.
And it was like a sailing. It was a pretty big ship, actually. About the length of a football field, if the Newswire story is correct. So yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Well, the crazy part about it is, I sit there and I say to myself, did they think that the water was rising and they could, they didn't figure out how tall the bridge was versus the ship? I mean, you understand what I'm saying? I mean, at some point in time, are we at a point now where we just don't think? People just don't put two and two together. I mean, they know how tall this ship is, right? They know how tall the bridge is.
How much clearance there is under the bridge? Well, that's the thing. I mean, look, I don't know, but I can tell you this. I can tell you that it's nothing new. I mean, like people who were supposed to be. I mean, it's funny you say that about this Brooklyn Bridge thing, and I've been thinking lately about the Letitia James scandal. Like, people who are professionals make mistakes all the time. It's like. It's just that very often the mistakes are small enough that they can keep them in-house. Every now and then, it's a big enough mistake that it makes it onto the evening news. That's really what it is. But, we shouldn't be, I don't think we should be that surprised. It's like, yeah, this kind of thing happens. Naval vessels have mishaps. In the U.S. Navy, too, in the British Navy, too, people do all kinds of stuff. I suppose I'm, years ago I became an aviation freak, and I took a few flying lessons and kind of studied everything I could about aviation and flying and airplanes. And I started looking at the accident logs for general aviation, which is small private aircraft. And there's a lot of accidents in general aviation compared to commercial flight, like a lot. And almost always it's pilot error, almost always. So yeah, I mean, kind of thing happens. I remember when one of the Kennedy kids, I say kids, but he was a grown man, flew his aircraft into a fog bank without having an instrument rating, and he ended up crashing, which that very often happens if you do that. So yeah, it's what it is. What I want to know is like how by how much. In other words, was it a difference of like high tide versus low tide? Because the East River is really people call it a river, but it's really kind of a tidal estuary. So the water level does go down when the tide goes out, right? So then my question is, well, by how much did they fail to clear the bridge? Maybe it was a very little bit. Maybe they forgot to check the tide.
No, it was
to check a tide chart. Or I don't know.
If you saw the videos, it was a lot. They hit. It was a lot, huh? Yeah, they hit this bridge pretty good, bro. They hit it pretty good. And that's why I was sitting there going, was it high tide when they? So I'm just was trying to figure out, how did they get in? Did they go in the same way that they came out, or did they come in a different way, or what? You understand?
That's my other question: is were they sailing in from the Atlantic Ocean, or like where were they sailing? Were they already upriver and sailing downriver out to I don't know.
That's the thing. That no one has said. But apparently, so I guess back in the day when they had these ships like this, these sailing type ships, men would stand up on top, and when they hit the bridge, I'm not sure because I've been looking for videos on this thing. See, they had like not the videos that we would get from the news, just some bypasser or somebody that was standing there had video on their phone. That's what I've been looking for, because apparently there was people up on these up on these sails
in the rigging.
Yeah,
guys in the rigging. In other words,
when it hit the bridge.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I think I remember. Someone told AP that they actually saw someone. They saw the vessel strike the bridge, and they saw one of the masts snap, and they saw someone dangling in the air, from the harness.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't even know the nature of the collision. Was it in fact that the mast hit the span of the bridge, or did the vessel actually strike one of the stone piers? I don't even know. No. Yeah, no. They hit
the mast hit the bridge.
The
yes, sir.
Hit the span. Okay. Damn. Oh yes, it was the top. Yes, so there you go. Yeah, I see it now. Yes, the top of it is. It's got three masts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the top mast hit the bridge. So meaning, it may have been the difference between high tide and low tide. I don't know. That's crazy. Yeah.
I was like, holy smoke, man. So at some point in time, like I said, are we at a point where we're just not thinking anymore? You understand what I'm saying?
No.
I mean, this is something major, man.
Well, yeah, but again, think about major accidents happen, right? Major accidents happen. I mean, and remember, this is a Mexican name, but it was a training vessel. So you had a lot of inexperienced people on board, right, who were there to be trained, and maybe a few senior people. This kind of thing happens.
Yeah.
This kind of thing happens.
Unbelievable.
Training accidents, with navies, U.S. Navy, Mexican Navy, British Navy, you name it. I mean, these things do happen. So I don't think this necessarily means. I put it this way: I don't think this is part of a. I don't think this indicates some social trend necessarily.
You're kind of breaking up a little bit.
Shit that indicates a social trend, but not this. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I guess hopefully we'll hear some little bit more out of that, and then we'll see what we'll see what they say on top of that. But still, yeah, I thought that was something that was like, holy smoke, man! I got to find out if Dexter heard about this or not. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So Biden, we found out, is a little sicker than what they told us.
Yeah,
I don't know if you heard about that.
I've seen that. I've seen that on the news wire as well. Yeah.
Okay, so I've had family members who have passed away from cancer, and I'm not a doctor. Not trying to act like a doctor. Not trying to be a doctor, but I'm just saying this isn't something that just popped up.
Nope.
You understand what I'm saying? I mean, you know, look, like I tell people, if it had not been for me going to a second doctor, I would have never been diagnosed with kidney failure, because the doctor that I was with, he totally misdiagnosed me. Totally misdiagnosed me. And by the time I got with the second doctor, it was too late. I was already in bad shape. I was already in kidney failure.
Yeah.
But this is the president of the United States, right? I mean,
right.
The best doctors in the world, correct? I'm just making sure
supposedly.
Right? And if that doctor don't get it right, he goes to another doctor. He's not your everyday person, right? That they just guess on, because, you know, the doctor, like I said, the doctor that I dealt with at first, he was pretty much guessing. Seriously, when we found out, when I got with the second doctor, that doctor was like, wow, I can't believe he missed this.
Yeah. I mean, that happens with doctors all the time, bro. I mean, that's the other thing. You know, talking about things that we tend to just have faith in as a matter of habit almost. Medical people screw up all the time. I mean, all the time.
Right.
You know, on basic stuff, not on stuff that's especially difficult or exotic or what have you, on basic matters. So, yeah, I mean, I think...
you have 1 minute left.
But put it this way, it seems to me that what I mean, that they, of course, this is something they tried to hide. I don't blame them for trying to hide it, but I mean, there we are.
That's where I was going. Let's do that on the backside.
All right, sounds good.
I'll see you in a second.
All right, bro.
The caller has hung up.
All right. Hey, now again, it is Dexter Taylor Sunday. What we do is we talk to Dexter Taylor on Sunday. For those who don't know, Dexter Taylor is in prison right now. I call him my political prisoner. Dexter Taylor is in prison right now in state of New York, doing 10 years on a fake gun charge that the Democrats decide to use a black man and to put him up on the whooping post to use him as an example. Dexter Taylor was doing nothing than what any American has a right to do. But they found a way to bring charges against this man, and now he's in prison. And every Sunday we get the opportunity. What we do is we give Dexter some time to talk to him for a little bit, see how his week is going. And we just chop it up. Whatever's in the news, we talk about it and things of that sort. So we appreciate each and every one of you who gives, your time to come in and hang out with us and listen to some of the things that Dexter has to say, and all the things that are happening on the backside of this thing. That is Carl. Carl does the work on the backside of this puppy. Dexter and I, we just chat with each other. Carl's doing all the work. So, with everything. But we appreciate those who, like I said, come in and hang out. I'll do the advertising before Dexter get back here again. As you see, I do have my black I Stand with Dexter Taylor hat on. I don't know for sure. I've got to get a hold of Solo to find out if he still has these hats, if you want to support Dexter. But if you don't want, some people don't like supporting people with their cash. So what we ask you to do, if you want to, or if you can support him, write a letter. That does a lot for what we're trying to do. Write a letter to somebody that you know, like a Joe Rogan. Hit Joe Rogan up. Seriously. Say, Joe, hey, here's this guy, Dexter Taylor, who's in prison right now in New York. If you have time, look into his case. Maybe Joe Rogan will pick it up. We don't know. We have no clue. Like I said, until you ask, I've sent things to him, but we'll see if we get those opportunities to hear from those so-called influencers, and see if they can get to work, with everything, Be nice if Kim Kardashian got on this one. She seemed to be able to get people out of prison. So see if we can get Dexter out before 10 years go by and he missed the time with his daughter and his family and things of that sort. But that's who we deal with in what we do here on Sundays. So again, like I said before, we thank you guys very much for coming and hanging out. Giving Dexter an opportunity to talk to some people. And again, if somebody wanted to chime in or something like that, you can definitely hit me up on here. Or if you miss anything, you can either get us on Twitter or you can get us on YouTube. Just go to my YouTube page there, and you can pull. Where's my YouTube sign? I had it around here somewhere, but one of the things that Dexter and I was just finished talking about was the boat that ran into, if you missed it, we was talking about the boat that ran into the bridge there in New York, which, we've got to start asking questions at this point. Planes are falling out of the sky. Boats are hitting bridges. Seriously, what is actually going on? This is crazy. With the things that are happening, and why is this thing happening? Why is this thing going on? It's flat out no ifs, ands, or buts, nuts. So when we get Dexter back here, we get Dexter for about 30 to 35 minutes. And then what has to happen is he has to hang up, and then he calls back. So we're in I call the intermission phase, waiting for Dexter to call back in. And he talks to us from a laptop. So sometimes he may go in, he may go out. There's times when you may not understand a little bit what he has. So we're using their Wi-Fi there in the prison. So that's why some of the times you may hear some of the things he say, and some of the times it may be a little garbled, because the prison Wi-Fi isn't like 5G, Xfinity type, internet going on there. So we get him in and we get him going out. So, but the good part about it is we get to talk to him. We get to be a part of what's going on with him. Again, for those who don't know, we are talking to Dexter Taylor. He was basically railroaded by a system that always finds a way to do something evil to people. And I'll put it that way. That's what it is. What was done to this man is flat out evil. Now, he could have easily taken a plea deal. He could have easily sat there and been like, that's okay. I'll take the plea deal. I'll go to prison for, half of that, 5 years, right? And if he was good in there and he wasn't causing trouble and fighting, he'll probably get out in 4. But, when a lot of times when people haven't done anything wrong. They're sitting there going, why? Why should I take a plea deal when I know I did nothing wrong? The man had never shot the firearms. He wasn't selling the firearms. Now, I can see if Dexter was in the back alley somewhere buying these parts with cash. I could now. Then I'll be like, dude, you. I would be like,
no, you can't. Hey, Dexter's back. Sorry.
Oh, he's back. Okay, sounds like a
Yeah.
deal. So Dexter's back on the line here. I can see if he was out buying these here parts with cash, like trying to hide, but he didn't. And how do we know that? Because his credit card company basically turned on him. Who's gonna break the law? Think about that for a second, because we was just talking about how all this stuff is happening. Who's thinking about? But thinking about it for a second, who's gonna break the law with their credit? No, seriously, with their credit card, really? And have them. I mean, you understand?
Yep.
Who's gonna? So
That's exactly what you're saying.
that's the part that gets me about your situation, Dexter. Is like, seriously, who's gonna break the law with their in a way like that with their credit card? If me, hey, I'm gonna be in the back alley, Dexter. You know, paying cash because I don't want nobody to know what's going on.
Right.
Exactly, right?
Correct.
So,
yeah, but again, this is why they were so. I mean, this is why the New York State hacks who were in charge of putting me on trial. This is why they were so upset, right? Because what I said, what I stood on, what I said when I took the stand in my defense was, this is my right. I'm not a prohibited person, right? So I passed a criminal background check. I'm not a prohibited person because you pulled my records. I wasn't doing anything crazy because you seized my devices and subpoenaed my email records. So I wasn't doing anything crazy. I wasn't doing anything that would make an ordinary person say, "Hey, whoa, this could be a problem." None of that. So yes, that's why they were so upset, because I simply stood on my right. I said, "Yeah, look, this is my civil right," because it is. It is. It's a very basic civil right. The Second Amendment we're talking about. So yeah, they had to paint a picture of, well, all his neighbors didn't know what was going on. My neighbors only knew what was going on. It's like, oh, he was building these. Yeah, I was building weapons. Exactly. So. Yeah.
And the part that always get me about this, I mean, I can't even make it make sense, is they're going to pull you in and hold you and put gun charges on you, and then turn around and say that you can't use the Second Amendment to.
Right. Exactly. I can't even mention the Second Amendment. Right. Exactly.
That's crazy,
again,
bro.
And again, look, it is true that in New York trial courts, in general, in state trial courts in general, juries are not supposed to consider constitutionality. They're supposed to consider whether the person broke the law on paper. Fair enough. But they were so worried that someone in the jury might actually listen to their conscience. That they said you can't even say the words of the Second Amendment in court. And that's how crazy it was. So this is how lawless regimes behave, right? They're doing what they want to do. Someone points out that they're at variance with the law, that they're in defiance of the law, they're in defiance of the highest court in the land, so on and so forth. And they're like, we don't care. We're gonna twist everything to fit what we want to do. We're not gonna change our program. That's how they get down. That's exactly how they get down.
Yeah, man. That's
the problem. Yeah. But I mean, the problem is that, like, they've done something. In other words, they like many overconfident adversaries, right? they overplayed their hands. You know, they kind of went too far because they were sure. You know what I'm saying? They were sure they had this. You know, and so they sent 10 years in prison. Okay, no problem. I'm sure they didn't consider that, the next president might not be Joe Biden. That we might end up with a Department of Justice task force specifically assigned to look into violations of the Second Amendment as a civil right. I'm sure they didn't count on the idea that that I had, all these people online who cared about this case and who were conservatives and who, stepped up to spread the word and what have you. I'm sure there's a lot of things they didn't foresee. They were just like, how dare this guy, make us spend time actually conducting a trial when he should have just pled down, to some lesser offense. And in fact, I should have just asked their forgiveness for having exercised my civil rights.
Right.
And then as a gift, they give me fewer years in prison. The hell with that. The hell with that. Absolutely not. No. Not going to happen.
Now.
Yeah. Go on.
Can Trump pardon you?
No, he cannot, because this is a state case. Trump cannot pardon states, people who are convicted in state prisons and state trial courts. But there's probably a few things that the Department of Justice can do. Because I'm not a lawyer, so take it with a grain of salt. But it seems to me that once the Department of Justice, if the Department of Justice chooses to get involved in this, God willing, right? Then it immediately becomes a federal matter. It's still not my case goes in the federal case, but the matter of my civil rights being violated is a federal matter. And there's all kinds of relief that I could theoretically get from the federal courts if this matter appears before them. That is, not the matter of what weapons I built and what have you, but the matter of were my civil rights violated. If that goes before them, then there's all kinds of things that they could possibly do to give us some relief. And then we still have the matter of the many irregularities in the trial. And those, along with 2A issues, those are going to be the things that we talk about when we work our way through the court system. But for now, my best hope is really the DOJ's involvement, because the New York State's appeal court system has no interest in actually, aside from the fact that it's a government institution like any other, it has no particular interest in making this go quickly. So yeah, that's that's where we are.
Joe Lanou says the man speaks truth. Hey Joe, when you gonna come hang out with us, man? Joe, we got to get Joe on here with us one of these Sundays.
Yeah, we got to get Joe.
Got to get Joe on here one of these. But we was just talking before you left. We were just talking about Biden and this so-called mystery illness that just popped up. And one of the things we know is, like we said, this man has. Well, I'm asking you, Joe, right now. I'm asking you straight up right now. Next, you know what? Next Sunday, Dexter, I will be in Wisconsin. My grand, we got traveling baseball. Just is. We'll
wonderful.
be so we'll be there next Sunday. So the Sunday after next, we're gonna get Joe Lanou on here with us. So I'm put. Is that okay, Carl? I gotta ask Carl because Carl usually books the guests and everything. So, we'll get him. We'll get Joe Lanou on with us. I'll hit Carl up and tell Carl to take care of that for us, and then he can get Joe on it. But to get back to Joe Biden, they knew, bro. They knew. I mean, this is it's all going to, and I've been sitting back just waiting for it all to come out. Because somebody, either he's going to pass, and then somebody's finally going to tell us the whole story. But that man wasn't.
Well, I mean,
Go ahead.
Well, here's the thing. Well, we didn't need. I mean, here's the good news. We didn't need them to tell us that he wasn't in good health. I mean, you could see. I mean, bro, you could see in his public appearances for at least the last year of his presidency, if not longer. The symptom wasn't all there. It just wasn't, right? And so the denials kind of the denials all rang hollow. I'll tell you what really concerns me. Speaking of social trends, is that there are people who, I mean, in general, there are people who are so loyal to a party or a politician, no matter who it is, no matter which party.
Thank you.
That they will deny obvious. They'll deny obvious. And I'm not talking about the professionals, the partisans, the hacks, the paid influencers, the staffers. Those you'd expect them to kind of keep the code of silence. I'm saying ordinary people who work real jobs for a living. There are people who are so loyal to a party or a politician that they will just kind of ignore basic reality or argue against it or say it's a, that's the thing. See, I expect professional Democrats to say, "Oh no, president's fine, everything's fine, don't worry about it." But I feel like I expect my fellow citizens to be like, it seems not to be right. You know what I'm saying? But then again, right? Another caveat is that we have to remember that there's one major class divide in American society. There are many, but one of the most important ones right now is the difference between people who get most of their news from TV and most of their news from social media. Because my parents, before this whole thing happened with New York State and these lawless Democrats we have, my parents were staunch Democrats for a long time. They like most other working class black folks in New York and in the rest of the United States.
True.
They were just profoundly turned off by the Republicans. They just didn't, like, ugh, why do these people seem to hate black folks? So anyway, they were Democrats. They didn't love the Democratic Party. They just thought of it as the lesser of two evils. Okay.
True.
Now, and when I was saying various stuff to my folks, when we talk and stuff like that. Say, yeah, Joe Biden, I don't know how much longer, he's going to hold on. They're going to make him hold on. And they'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, what? And for a while I was like, well, don't you see? And I was like, oh, right, you're watching television. You're watching television. And if you watch television, a lot of the stuff that you and I, Reverend Tim, saw, right, you're not going to see until they're ready to do a limited hangout and say, okay, yeah, he's kind of falling apart. He just started falling apart now. Those of us who were seeing, who had like a freer access to media and who cared to do a little bit of, investigating, could see right away that, hey, this is a problem. And we're saying this is a problem. And then, people say, oh, if you're talking about that, again, a lot of people who watch television for most of their news. That's true of Joe Biden and his deterioration during the latter half of his presidency. It's true of the COVID freak out. It's true of the election, the 2020. What was that? What election was? What year was that election? The last Trump-Biden election. That was 2020.
2020. Yeah,
the 2020 election. And what seemed to me to be an obvious, but what a reasonable person would have to admit is, some funny looking business. And even when you say to some people, hey, listen, this looks funny. It's like, wow, what are you talking about? Why? Because those people watch television to get most of their media. Now, some people who are on the internet all the time and get a lot of their news from social media, YouTube, what have you, will still have a distorted view because it's possible to kind of arrange your online life so that you shut out all the information that doesn't agree with you. That's not hard to do. But the thing is, when it comes to television, that arranging is done for you. That arranging is done for you on your behalf. So that's what I say is just that. I don't like the trend of like people being so loyal to politicians and to parties that they lose their ability to think critically, or they voluntarily give up their ability to think critically. I think some of that has to do with the fact that we've done away with things in this country where certain things that people could take pride, you feel take pride in, other than their politics. Your pride should be in your work. Your pride should be in your family. Your pride should be in your household. Your pride should be in your children. Your pride should be in these things. Your local associations, what have you. If your pride is all in your politics, that leads to very bad things, and I think that's part of what we're seeing. So,
no, and I totally agree with what you just said. It's sad that that's the way things have to be these days. That so many people will push water for their party, that they will lie for their party. They would literally tell us lies, and they lied to us because that man. Let's just out of the blue said that he won the election, right? He would have ran and he would have won the election. We would be up. We would be up that creek.
Very shitty creek indeed.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you saying that, because people get mad at me for saying it, but thank you much.
Yeah, don't worry. I got you.
But because people, like you said, people get to the point. It's just like the same thing here, right? Mm-hmm. I'm running for lieutenant governor, and I've got people to tell me that, well, if you're not Republican, I'm not voting for you. I've got people to tell me I got people to tell me if you're not Democrat, I'm not voting for you. I've got people to tell me if you run under the Democratic Party, I will not vote for you. Yeah. Instead of voting on principle of
the principle,
right? On being a people, working with people, getting people. But it's sad that we've come to that point to where because they want the Democrats wanted to stay in party, they were willing to put Bernie's weekend up on us. Think about that for a second, right? That's what they did.
Absolutely.
And it's sad, but the truth is the truth always comes out. That's the good thing about this. No matter how many times they fool you, how many times they try to tell you something different, you wait long enough. That lie is going to come to fruition. No ifs, no ands, no buts about it.
Yes, although in this case, I would say it was such an obvious lie. I mean, I know it's not
true.
The fact they had a particular illness wasn't evident, but I mean, the fact that something was wrong with them was, yes, that was obvious. So, but to me, it's like the truth was already out. It's just that people were in denial, and they thought they could just stonewall it right up until the election. Thankfully, he dropped out.
Yep.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think thankfully, but in reality, it wouldn't have made a difference. Because I remember when he said he wasn't going to run. And I remember that a bunch of top-ranking Democrats and what have you all said, "Oh, thank God." I mean, publicly, like, "Oh, thank God," because he was never going to win. And you remember, just like a few weeks before, they had been saying, but Biden is gonna win this thing going away. It's not a contest. We don't want to hear any more nonsense, conspiracy theories about stolen elections. It's obvious when Biden wins, this is going to be too easy. That's what they were saying. And as soon as he said he was stepping down and not running, stepping out, not running, there was this huge audible sigh of relief from professional Democrats around the country. Like, oh my God, thank goodness. Ooh,
well, Dexter, you remember he had the side that wanted him to stay, And then he had the side that just, like you said, had the sigh of relief that he was getting out.
Well, I think the professionals, the people who actually do politics for a living, who run the numbers for a living, stuff, they pretty much were all on the side of him leaving. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's the wishful thinkers who were like, yeah, come on, Joe, you can pull it out for us. But that wasn't going to happen. And by the way, look, you could say, and I think, I think it's correct that it was wishful thinking that also prompted them to put Kamala Harris up as a candidate. That was also wishful thinking.
Yeah, I don't know.
What?
I don't know what they was thinking about that. I mean, here's again, we go back to the point that when people are so deep into their party that they can't see above the trees. They were so deep into the party with her.
As a cool theme for this particular talk, right?
Right.
It's like, how everyone has been engaged in this kind of low level idolatry for the past few years, worshiping machines. You hear people talk about artificial intelligence, AI, and everything. AI, the AI can do this, AI can do this. Like, and those of you who know my content know that I've been saying repeatedly, listen, everyone just calm down, just relax. No, take it easy. These are machines. They're dumb as rocks. But they're machines that have been programmed with some interesting math to look at some cool stuff, which is great. But no, you're not going to get a machine that's smart enough to quote unquote run the world or whatever nonsense. No. Okay. Anyway, it's like, okay, so there's a similar kind of, well, let me back up a second. So artificial intelligence, math, supposedly, a thing. Okay. Now, my contention is that the much more important and kind of wide-ranging trend in our society, and maybe in all societies right now, is artificial stupidity. I don't think we have any to worry about really from so-called artificial intelligence. Again, machines are dumb as rocks, and you can unplug them. Yeah. The problem is artificial stupidity. The problem is people who go around and who reason about the world on paper and never think to put that reasoning to the test. There's people who go around reasoning about the world in computers, in computer software, and never think to put that reasoning, that logic to the test. Right? There's people who get together in groups, and maybe they're paid by the government, maybe they're paid by private capital, but these are insular groups. They're kind of closed. And these people spend so much time smelling their own exhaust fumes and congratulating each other, they end up making really, really, really stupid decisions. This is artificial stupidity, and it's a real thing. Years ago, I wrote an essay about a blog post about the space shuttle Challenger disaster. Because that happened when I was in high school. Space shuttle Challenger blew up. And, they had this whole inquest and what have you. Turns out what happened was that on the launch pad, the night before the launch, morning of the launch, a company called Morton Thiokol, which had built the solid rocket boosters that failed, that destroyed the shuttle. Morton Thiokol had built these rockets to order for NASA. And Morton Thiokol called up NASA the morning of the launch and said, hey, guys, this booster, which we built for you, is not safe to fly. You need to scrub this launch. And NASA, aka an organization full of rocket scientists, was like, nah, it'll be fine. Okay? That's artificial stupidity. You can't make an argument that NASA of dummies. It is literally chock full of rocket scientists. So why did it make the stupid decision? The guys who built the booster told you it's not safe to fly it. And you thought you knew better because what now? Artificial stupidity. And that example of it got like 7 people killed, right? But it happens all the time. It happens all the time. It happens in government. It happens in the private sector too. Let's not, conservatives don't think that artificial stupidity is limited to government. It's absolutely not. The difference is that if a company indulges in artificial stupidity for long enough, then eventually they won't be able to make profit, and that's the end of them. Except if they have friends in Washington, they can borrow their way to solvency. But for normal businesses, they do stupid stuff for long enough, and that's the end of them. But so long rant, but just by way of saying that, yes, Reverend, I think that the thing that you and I are looking at, everything from this boat accident to people's weird takes on politics. You can chalk a lot of this stuff up to artificial stupidity. It's almost as universal as original sin, I think.
Well, I think they're at a point of sitting there saying that we don't think for ourselves anymore. There's no mind thought there that we can't think for ourselves anymore. We're so stupid that we would believe that a man who will freeze up at a microphone is still okay.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Yeah,
and we see that.
Yeah, but it's not.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah, but it's not stupid. I don't think it's stupidity. I think that's too easy.
No. They think that they think.
No. Well, I mean, I see what you mean. Yes, but I see what you mean. But I think. But here's the thing. I think that ultimately, remember, look, everyone. How can I put this? Everyone is irrational about the things they love. That's the problem, is that everyone really is irrational about the things they love. Everyone has a blind spot. Everyone has a blind spot in the size and shape of something that they love, something that they're proud of, something that they're personally invested in. I would say the number one problem is that we are too personally invested in politics, in politicians, and parties. In other words, we should be personally invested in outcomes, by all means, because the outcomes matter. The outcomes have personal ramifications, right? They have personal effects in our life. That's personal, right? The problem is that we have a broken political culture where we love these parties. We're invested in this person and you hate this person that's in that party. It's like, and I've told people before, like, listen, just get on my side and hate both major parties. That's the best place to be. And you can think clearly. Just try it. Just despise both major parties like I do. And you'll be shocked at how clearly you can think. I was like,
Dexter, I keep trying to tell people.
That's a bad idea.
Right. Yeah. I keep trying to tell people that. And it's just so hard. It's funny because, you hear this, the plantation, people on plantation. You remember that whole thing that they was running around with? But I sit there and go, y'all all are on the plantation. Because it doesn't matter if it's Democrats or Republican. When you try to tell these people that you can see clearer, and you can see through a lot of things, if you get from up under some of these parties, they'll fight you tooth and nail. Yeah. They will fight you tooth and nail.
Well, again, that is because they have put okay. If you, for example, I really do think this is the reason, and maybe I'm biased, but look, if you tell me this and that and so about the Republican Party, I'd be like, yeah, probably. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I mean, if it's, it's like, well, because I don't, if I disagree, I'll only disagree on a point of fact. Like, if you say something that I know to be factually untrue, I'll say, well, actually, that didn't happen, blah, 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 but this did happen. But, I mean, if you tell me, put it this way, if you state to me a negative opinion about the Republican Party, I'm going to be like, well, yeah, that sounds right. Same thing with the Democratic Party. You say, that's how they do. Right? Because
you have 1 minute left.
Because I have nothing invested in them. But that's the thing. When you talk to someone who has invested something personal, more personal than money, in either party, then it's not a matter of just reasoning with them. You have to first get them to disinvest. And that doesn't take place overnight. Just like, quitting cigarettes is not something people usually do overnight. So I think that's the problem. I just heard Minute Maid chime in, so I'm going to drop and then we'll come on back and chop it up some more, man.
All right. Sounds like a deal, bro. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
The caller has hung up.
All right. Hey. For those who just jumping on here with us, this is Dexter Taylor Sunday. And for those who have been with us before, you know what we do on Sundays. We sit back and we talk with Dexter Taylor, get his mindset, get his mind right. Like I said before, if you have never been in a prison, to visit a prison, or been inside of a prison, and you're locked up for 24 hours, or even you locked up for 10 minutes, that's something that will definitely, no ifs, ands, or buts, get to you. I've had the opportunity to walk through prisons, walk through jails, walk through workhouses. And like I said before, I knew in my mind I was leaving, but it still gives you the willies to hear them doors clank, to hear them close. And just think about getting 10 years and they telling you that you're not ever going to leave there, what that will do to your psyche and what that will do to your mind. So that's another one of the reasons why we like to get on here and chop it up with Dexter Taylor. We want to keep this man and let him know that there are people on the outside here who believe in him, who believe that he was done wrong. Here's a man that's sitting in prison right now for 10 years, and he didn't commit a gun crime. He didn't shoot anybody. He didn't kill anybody. He didn't hurt anybody. He didn't cause anybody harm. But the state of New York decided, again, I believe, this is just my belief. You can look into his story and come up with what you think. But the state of New York, I believe, looked at this man and said, we're going to make an example out of you. I believe that they made sure that Dexter was going to jail. And any black man who did anything close to what Dexter did, and it's like back in the day when the Democrats, because it was the Democrats, it's back in the day when the Democrats would take their slaves and put them on the tree, tie them to a tree and beat them to a pulp. That's what I feel like they did to Dexter Taylor. So if any other black man do what Dexter did, this is what you're going to get. So now black people are like, I bet not get a gun. If y'all don't understand how racist these gun laws and these gun bills are, then y'all not 2A defenders at all, because they are. They have used, the Democratic Party has used guns and the way that they use guns when they're talking about black people. Look, I'm a preacher, and I almost got kicked out of my church because of the firearm that I carry with me all the time. And if it had not been for the people across the street who came a few weeks afterwards and threatened my pastor, they were going to ask me to leave. A black church, they was going to ask me to leave because they did not want me carrying in the church. And we have them little signs. You walk to our front door, say guns are not all this here. We have those things at our church also. But older black folks have got this disdain for firearms because of the way that the Democratic Party has put firearms into their heads. Like, it's a bad thing to have a gun. Only people that in the black community that's allowed to have a gun is a thug, is a bonehead who's selling drugs on the corner. It's okay for him to have a gun. Oh, we know what he's going to do with the gun. He's going to kill another black person with it. But a preacher who's on the street dealing, but a preacher on the streets dealing with these thugs shouldn't have the right. That's the mindset that is in parts of the black community when it comes to guns. And I refuse to sit back. Because look. I tell this story all the time. The first time I ever walked into a drug house to pull out this 16-year-old girl, and everybody in that drug house had a firearm, I promised myself never again will I walk into one of these houses and I don't have something to defend myself with. Now, I was lucky on that day because I actually knew a couple of people in the drug house. That's why, hey, that's Rev. He's okay. He's okay. That's how I get to go in places. But still, I look at it and go, I should have a right to have what they got. They have it. They have it illegally. I have it legally. But still, the Democrats don't see it that way. Not in the black community.
Nope.
Not in the black community, right?
No,
and that's what they do, right? Dexter Taylor is what the Democratic Party and how the Democratic Party teaches black folks a lesson when it comes to gun. I'm sorry, brother.
No,
go ahead. No, you good. Go ahead.
When Democrats talk about common sense gun control, what has happened to me is exactly what they mean.
Exactly.
That is what they mean. In other words, look, what you mean is what you do. You see what I'm saying? So this is what they're doing. Everyone should pay attention to that. Like that's what they mean. They mean they don't care if there's a law that supersedes their little gun control regime. They don't think the Constitution, if it divides the Constitution, they don't think the Supreme Court renders a decision. They don't care if they catch up someone who they know is not a threat to civic order, is not a threat to public peace, not a threat to other human beings. They don't care. This is what they mean. Everyone should pay attention to this, if only to be assured that when they say, yeah, no, I believe in, common sense gun laws, this is what they mean. That a 50-some-odd-year-old native New Yorker with a clean criminal record no crazy shit, should go to prison for 10 years for manufacturing firearms in his home.
No, I need you to say. I need you to say, Dexter. I need you to say that part again. No criminal record.
Yeah.
Correct?
No criminal record. No criminal record. Like I said, I passed a criminal background check to become a member in the standing of my gun range, which I was before I was rated. And certainly after that, they would have pulled my record. They would have known. They knew I wasn't planning to do something crazy out in the streets because, again, they subpoenaed my email records. They confiscated my device. They I wasn't trying to sell weapons or distribute them, or I wasn't even talking about them on social media. I wasn't posting pictures, nothing like that. Okay, so this is what they mean. And listen, if people on the outside are okay with that, well, then that's their right to be okay with that. They can, they say, something, that's better. If the government just says you don't have the right to defend yourself no matter what, if people are okay with that, then they're okay with that. But at least we should know, we should acknowledge that this is what they're talking about. And by the way, this is a good segue, Reverend, because before the break we were talking about, I was talking about artificial stupidity, and then we're talking about, people trying to explain things to people and people not being able to process it or not willing to deal with it, people being so invested in a single point of view.
Party dummies is what I called them.
And it's not, so watch this. It's not just political parties. I think this is kind of a general tendency that can be found in human society. And I think of it as how can I put this? Well, as people who have a pornographic view of the world. When you talk about party dummies, you're talking about someone who has a pornographic view of party politics. What do I mean by pornographic? What I mean specifically is that a point of view that kind of displaces and magnifies certain things. To where that magnified view and that distorted kind of disembodied view becomes everything and you can't see anything else. Some time ago, I was talking about this with respect to some of the people online who take pleasure in kind of posting, black people acting the fool videos.
Time out. We're gonna but if we gonna talk about that? But
we're gonna talk about that. But
yeah,
I'm not skipping ahead.
Okay.
That's an example of what I'm talking about. In other words, look, if anyone's susceptible to this, by the way, right? If you are in the habit of going on social media, going on the internet and seeking out examples of Democrats being corrupt, right? And saying, that's like Democrats are like that, and like Republicans are great. Democrats are the ones who are so corrupt. That's a pornographic view of the world. Mm-hmm. It's a pornographic way of looking at politics. If you spend all your time going and looking into history and you come the only thing you can see in American history is slavery. Slavery. That is also a pornographic view this time of history, right? So you can look at anything pornographically. All you have to do is be willing to discard most of the reality of what's there, most of the complexity of what's there, and just take your kind of chosen piece and magnify it until it fills your whole vision. The habit of doing that is in essence a pornographic habit. And so here's another thing that we know destroys people is pornography addiction. It applies in all cases. Young men who are addicted to sex-based pornography, right? What are they doing? They're focusing on certain pieces, right? Certain parts of a woman, certain aspects of a woman, right? And magnifying that and reveling in that magnified view, and until their ability to see everything else atrophies. And then that same young man who's a pornography addict, finds himself unable to deal with an actual real woman, because an actual real woman is active. An actual real woman, has all the kind of the messy attributes of a normal human being. And this pornography addict is going to look at this ordinary woman and be like, well, why isn't she always in the mood for sex? What's the matter? Why doesn't she talk a certain way? Why doesn't she? Where's the high heels? Where's the lingerie? How come she's not, of course, a normal woman can't be, even if she might dress up to please her husband, she can't be like that all the time. Because no one's like that all the time, because that's not real. It's pornography. So now you see how that pornographic way of looking at the world is applicable to everything. Everything. Politics included. Oh, well, that's Democrat. That's just how they are. And that's all you can see. And so you can't reason about politics in a sensible way. You can't be like, hey, the Republicans are full of it too. You can't look at a thing something that quote unquote your party is doing and say, well, that doesn't make any goddamn sense. You can't look at a thing that the other party is doing and say, oh, well, actually that sounds reasonable. You can't do that. You can't reason about the world. Because why? Because pornography addiction destroys your ability to reason about the world. Because in the depths of pornography addiction, you're only reasoning about a simplified and magnified and disembodied portion of the world, not the world itself. And that's the problem. And, I don't know what the cure is, but that seems to me very much the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
No, got you, man. That and like I said, that's true. With the way that we are at a point of actually seeing the world. But hey,
exactly.
Because you brought it up, let's get into it. Have you heard the new word? Yeah. Have you heard the new word though?
Blackness fatigue.
Black fatigue.
Well, that's very interesting that you say that, because when I heard it, I was like, oh, right, that makes perfect sense. Because listen, that's the other thing that happens with pornography addiction, right? I mean, pornography addicts become what? become desensitized, become bored with the real thing.
The normal,
right?
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Get someone who's victim of pornography. His girlfriend isn't good enough for him anymore. Why? Just like, well, he's burned himself out. He's just, I'm tired of this. Well, of course, because listen, if you get to pick and choose the parts of the world that appeal to you, right, and disembody them and magnify them and hyper focus on them for days, weeks, months on end, then after a while, it's like when some real part of the world shows up, you're just like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no.
Oh God, right? Because okay, so yes, I feel some sympathy for our brethren who are pornography addicts. It's, it sounds terrible, and but that's what it is. Look, it's the same. I mean, I was talking to Sonny Johnson a while ago, and she said, well, look at all these guys are talking about, well, I've just got blackness fatigue. Now, I mean, a lot of them are the ones who've been going around in this pornographic way and, like, finding all the videos of, like, young black men doing stuff in the street that they shouldn't be doing. It's like, see, that's how they are. Full impulse control, that kind of thing. And it's like, well, yeah, bro, yeah, you think that if you're addicted to pornography. Sure. Why wouldn't you think that? You know what I'm saying? I mean, see, and here's where I'm lucky, because as a resident of New York, it's like walk around Brooklyn and go to the dry cleaners, go to the store, go to the supermarket, go to the bank, see work crews cutting into the street. I mean, I'm seeing black folks all the time, just like working. Think it's like do a job. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and no, actually, I have not the slightest worry that the black dude who's working on a hot circuit underneath the manhole for Con Ed is going to jump out of it and come and mug me. No, that's not really going to happen. Stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, no, moron.
Right.
Imbecile.
But
it's like, they're all like that. It's like this. Dude, it's a mania, And like I said, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And I've just made a decision that life is too short, and I have too much to do, especially now, kind of being in the fight of my life. It's just not worth engaging with pornography addicts and try to me, it's a two-part process. Like, I can reason with people who disagree with me politically, and it's like I welcome it, right? And we can have good and fruitful arguments, but I can't reason with a pornography addict. It's, I'd like to be able to, but it is literally not possible, because they can't see anything. Like, you're trying to talk about actual things, right? And they're like, well, check out the video. I've been in those situations, bro. Well, like, you're trying to talk about actual, families and things and whatever, and they're like, yeah, but look at these black people, that's, because it's like porn. They want another hit of porn.
No, and I've said that also, because here we have this website, right? And they report on crime, and they can put up a crime, something that the black people do here, and the website goes nuts. Because right now what we're having, I'll give you an example. Right now what we're having a problem with these petties, right? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Petty thefts?
No, no. Where you got men propositing, having sex with young kids.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. And they here in Minnesota, and they've been catching them like left and right. They happen to be, but the ones they're catching, they happen to be white. Now, I could all day put this stuff out.
Right.
All day. That's all I can do is sit back and go and look for it and then prove my point of saying there's a problem in the white community with, white men and teachers. So a lot of these teachers.
And then yeah, that's right. A lot of teachers doing the same thing, right?
White teachers do right. So
yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then you could be like, well, you see, I'm just following. That's the thing with like pornography addicts say all the time. They're like, well, I'm following the data. I'm folling the data.
I'm following the data.
First of all,
right?
like, first of all, you're not supposed to follow data. You're supposed to, reason. You use data as an instrument. It's one of the ingredients in your reasoning process. One of the many ingredients, right? But again, if you're only focusing on one type of data point, well, again, you're going to end up, you are in a pornographic loop. And no matter what someone says to you, like, that's the way they are. Look at this new video I just pulled up. It's like, it's boring and it's stupid, but it's unfortunate. It's where many of us are. That's a real problem.
So on this website we have here, like I said, it's a crime website, but when, like I said, but if she put something on there that white people have done, you don't get nothing. So I say they get off on that. The people, like you said, pornography. They actually get off on black people.
They get off on it.
They actually get off on black people's misery. You understand what I'm saying? So now they're saying they're saying black. I was in this space with matter of fact, Roni is on here. This dude Roni. I was in this space with Roni. And it was and they were talking about black people, a bunch of white people in a space. This is what cracks me up all the time. And I go in there and I sit in these spaces because I like to listen to how white people think about us. So I'm in this space. So I'm in this space, and the host actually said, I don't be around black people. I'm sitting there going, how can you hold a space talking about black people, but you're not around black people? And these people that's in these spaces who give these people a thumb up to do this, to me, I feel like if I could go into spaces and see them and just smack them up on side the head, I would. I'm sitting there going, but why are you in these spaces talking about black people, white people I'm talking about, and you're never around black people? That's the thing that gets me.
Because they're in the depths of pornography addiction. That's it. That's why. And by the way, and here's the thing: a lot of these people, a lot of the porn addicts I'm talking about, also have another problem, which is which I call which is a kind of idolatry. It's skin worship. And I started calling people that, and a lot of racists got upset with me because I said, I wouldn't, they'd say some racist thing online in a Telegram chat group or whatever, and they're like, a skin worshiper, interesting. That's weird. It's like a lot of them call themselves Christians. I'd be like, really?
That's what cracks me up.
Worship?
That's the part that cracks me up.
Wait a minute. It's like, I thought, first of all, as far as I know, there's only one truly kind of magical organ, one magical body part, and that confers some like kind of mystical greatness on people. That's the blood of Christ. That's magic. But like your skin, ew. What kind of degenerate pagan nonsense is that? You're a skin worshiper? Really? Do you worship rocks and trees too? You know what I'm saying? Like, do you have a foot fetish? I mean, it's just like, that's kind of how I deal with them because, they also get off on people getting upset at, whatever racist shit they say. They get off on that. And so, just be like, okay, worship skin, be my guest. I mean, that's your bit.
But it's sad, though, man. But what I'm saying is, it's just sad to see people. I mean, they spend their days with us in their head 24/7, and they go out and they find. I mean, literally, they go hunt for videos of black people doing things, so they could put it out there. So other people can Google over it.
Listen, that's not the worst. That's not the worst. That's the worst thing is that I was in this space with somebody who was saying a lot of dumb shit, and I was like, and I pointed out their math, the fundamental math there. I'm like, look, first of all, I talked about, what is actually going on, in terms of this relatively small number of offenders relative to the population offending and reoffending and reoffending and reoffending and giving you the very high crime rate that you have. We know this is the case. How do we know this is the case? We know this is the case because in New York, for example, fewer than 5% of criminal cases make it to trial. Fewer than 5%. Why? What's happened to the other 95+% of criminal cases? They're getting pled down. And what does that mean? That means that you're a criminal. Let's say you're a black criminal. You perform some criminal act, and the police put hands on you. You're arrested. You're charged, right? And instead of being tried for that act, you get to say, well, how about we just say I did this less severe thing, and you give me like much less time. And the government is like, okay. Or sometimes it's the government side. They're like, listen, we caught you doing an armed robbery. We got you dead to rights on armed robbery. But if you just say it was an aggravated assault, we're willing to, right? I mean, so this is the funny thing, right? Government. This is hiding in plain sight. Everyone knows about plea deals. Everyone should know about how prevalent they are. So we shouldn't be surprised when we see these offenders reoffend and reoffend and reoffend, and you get this very high crime rate. But, again, pornography addicts look at that and say, oh, that means all black people are criminals. It's like if this percent of the crime, it's like, yeah, they're all criminals. It's like, well, no, that's not what it means.
No, what cracks?
That's not what it means.
What cracks me up is if you and I was to every night come on this here and talk about white people, they'll say we're painting them with a wide brush, right?
Okay.
But
They can say that.
Right, we're painting them with a wide brush. But if it's the other way around, it's all black people, right? Black people, I've got black fatigue because black people do this. And black people, it's the culture. That's what where is pedophilia culture? Should we start
pedophilia?
Pedophilia? Should we start saying that's culture because that's who's getting caught a lot. I mean, a lot.
Here's the thing, right? Look, it's like, look, at the end of the day, here's the good news, right? Is that, pornography addicts aren't really my problem. They're not your problem either. Why? Because if someone, thinking as a tactician, right, or better yet, as a strategist, if I'm looking at the whole landscape and I have an adversary who's only looking at a tiny corner of the landscape that they've magnified to look like the whole map, he's not going to be a problem for me for long. You know what I'm saying? In other words, I automatically have the upper hand. I'm thinking about the whole thing. He's thinking about little tiny pieces of it over and over and over and over and over and over again. He's in a loop. Well, my loop is bigger than his, right? And I'm going to fold him up in my loop, and he's not a problem anymore. This, by the way, what's funny about that is that there was an Air Force colonel named John Boyd who he came up with this concept called the OODA loop, the observe, orient, decide, act. He talked about the mental processes involved in, for example, aerial dogfighting as being a kind of an OODA loop. That's what you're doing as a combat pilot, as an aggressor pilot. You're observing, orienting, and deciding and acting. And what he said is literally that if your OODA loop, if your loop is larger than your opponent's loop, if you can get him to fold in on himself, in other words, right, then you can dominate the battle space and you win. So in the realm of politics, it's the same thing. If my enemy has a much smaller loop than I have, if his is intensive while mine is extensive, ultimately I'm going to dominate the battle space because I'm looking at I'm taking in more information. I'm acting on a wider variety of factors. And he's just looking at one. So, too bad for him. Not my problem, you know. Ultimately, so yeah, that's what I think. I mean, yes, there are people like that. There are a lot of people like that. But look, there are a lot of people in the world. You know, this is a country of a third of a billion people. So after all, we're going to have a lot of people on Twitter who are doing this. We're going to have a lot of people on Telegram or Clubhouse or whatever who are doing this. But ultimately, it's like, okay. You know, it's like you're addicted to porn. Fine. By the way, you know, so it's to give equal time. I mean, I have a lot of, I've run across a lot of black pornography addicts. I've run across a lot of black folks who don't want to talk about anything but chattel slavery. Well, that's a problem, too. Because if we're trying to understand the history of this country, the history of labor, the history of economics, the history of the free family, the history of all these things, and if all you can think about is, like, you know, malicious white folks, and the problem is not that there were never any malicious white folks. It's that is so small a part of the picture that you're going to fold yourself up into your own loop to where you can't reason about anything else. This is what happened to Ta-Nehisi Coates, by the way. And it's a shame because Ta-Nehisi Coates is, as a matter of fact, a talented writer, like a prose stylist and what have you. He's actually he knows how to use his instrument. And the problem is, at a certain point, he got folded up into that loop. And all he could think about was one thing. And all he wanted to write about was that one thing. And he effectively destroyed his own ability to reason about the wider world. What makes it even worse is that, like, he did that, he showed his diminished ability to reason holistically, and he wrote that into a book. And white folks ate that book up. You know, so I'm talking about Between the World and Me. You know, I mean, they just love that book. You know, it's like, thank God, you know, somebody's talking about how bad white people are. You know, this is part of what we have to deal with, like pornography addiction, artificial stupidity. These are the things that are really kind of interfering with our ability to have a vibrant political culture, and, by the way, to reason together about what is happening to us, Reverend. What is happening to us? In other words, the Democrats that are running your city and your state into the ground, Rev, are running it into the ground for everybody. Everybody suffers under them. You know? And if you're going to get out of it, you know, you all will have to figure out how to get out of it together. Because it's something that is happening to you all, you see. And so, yeah, that's where we are, bro. That's where we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's at a point where I want to really figure out people who do this.
Why? Why do you want to figure them out?
Why do I want to figure them out? Because it's interesting to. Because I look at things, and, you know, when I was going through my theology class, and one of the things that my professor was talking about was to dig deeper into certain things.
You have 1 minute left.
You know what? Go. Let's do. Can you do one more?
Let's drop a Yes, I can, because I definitely want to hear about this.
Yeah. Let's do one more here. Yeah. So right. let's go ahead and do that. Good. Sounds good. I'll talk to you in a minute.
All right.
Thank you.
Be right back.
The caller has hung up.
All right. Appreciate you all for hanging out and hanging in here with us as we go through. Again, for those who don't know, I'd like to. I know people said, "Well, you said that, Rev." Well, we always have people jumping in and out. So just to let people know what's going on. Like I said, we got Dexter Taylor on the line here on a Sunday. Got my black hat. I've got a red one like this here. I want to thank Solo. He was on here earlier. If Solo, if you're still on, bro, again, thank you very much for what you've done and all that you do. But this hat right here, I got a red one. I stand with Dexter Taylor. Some of this money goes to help what's going on with Dexter Taylor, and we appreciate the man who put these here hats together for us and everything, which is awesome. And I walk around with this, and people read this, and they're like, "What's going on? What's going on?" So I tell them Dexter's story, tell them what's going on with him, and how we ended up where we're at today, and why we're doing what we're doing for today. Not only is this for Dexter, this is for everybody else who understand and realize how unjust the system can be sometimes. But when they just go out of their way and realize that the system is unjust, and they use this in this type of manner, something is wrong. And we all sit back and we wait until it happens to us before we speak out about how unjust this system is. Here for the past couple of weeks, what happened? What was been going on? Everybody's been talking about Derek Chauvin, that Derek Chauvin should get out, correct? But Derek Chauvin, what people don't realize is Derek Chauvin went to jail under the same corrupt system that a lot of other people went. And my thought is if Derek Chauvin's going to get out, I know a guy up in Rush City right now that I've been backing, Philip Vance. He's in prison under that same unjust system. So, but Dexter, what I was saying before we jumped off here is I've been curious about these people who do this. So I started actually following one. I started following this person for a reason, because if you go to her site, what she does is she posts a lot about black people. Her site is filled with black people doing this and black people doing that. So I'm trying to get her on my show so I can ask her that question. What is it that fascinates you about black people so much? Well, I need to know, why is it that white people are so fascinated with black people that they would spend most of their day actually putting stuff out about, videos, the things that they say about black people. No, I'm going to find out, Dexter, and I'm going to let you know. And this is where I'm starting.
Okay, but I would just say one thing. I think there's an error. I think there's an error in your thinking.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Go ahead.
Because here's the thing. Again, we're talking about pornographic thinking. Okay. Pornography addicts, right? People who are really in the depths of, let's say, sex-based pornography addiction, right, are not, in fact, fascinated by women. That's the last thing in the world that fascinates them. Because they're not interacting with women. Your actual girlfriend is a woman, right? Your actual girlfriend, your actual wife will look at you and challenge you. Your actual wife or girlfriend will say, "Hey, don't bullshit me." Okay? That's an actual woman. She might ask you to open a pickle jar or take a spider outside or, whatever, right? Or sweep the yard or whatever. That's an actual active woman. Pornography addicts have no interest in that. Very obviously they don't. So by the same token, it seems to me that people who are interested in this kind of race-based pornography are not actually fascinated by
there you go, race-based pornography.
Yes. They're not fascinated by black people at all. They're fascinated by some that, listen, one, they're worshiping their own skin, they're skin worshipers. And they're looking for things to kind of validate their form of worship.
No, I understand. Right? Hold on one second, Dad.
That's kind of sad, but
Hold on. I get what you're saying. I understand that, but this is a problem, though, bro. I mean, these people have to have a. Go ahead.
No, why is this problem?
No, these people have a problem. No, I'm saying people who like to do this. People who like people who like to go to these people's pages for this type of content. I mean, come on. There's a problem here, bro.
But it's not my problem.
No, I understand it's not your problem, but I just want to understand. I mean, because like you said, the people who like porn, there's a problem with that seeing. Well, come to think about it, one of the number one sites is black men with white women, correct?
There you go. Right? So, I mean, this is what I mean. It's like, I understand. Look, don't get me wrong. I'm not challenging your curiosity. If you're curious about this, so be it. I'm just saying what you said before about why are these people so fascinated by black folks. I'm just saying, well, no, that they're not fascinated by black people because they're not dealing with people. They're dealing with images of certain people doing bad things, which is not the same thing as a person. That's the first thing, right? So that's what I think. And I also think it's not my job certainly not my job to solve the problem. But even in terms of things that are interesting, I mean, there are lots of interesting things in the world, and there's so many of them that this right here is going to have to take a pass. But that's just me.
Right.
But I want to hear what your theology professor was saying. You were about to tell me that story. I want to hear that.
Well, what he always says was, crack the nut. When you have a mindset and you see something that you need, he always said just crack the nut. Well, the nut started with Candace Owens, right? And I couldn't understand. No. What I'm saying with me, because I couldn't understand why. Right. I couldn't understand why white people were so enamored with this woman until I got into the room. Yeah. Until I was actually in a room with Candace Owens and a whole room of white people as she stood up on this stage and she's talking to them and they're looking at this woman like she's Santa Claus or something, like she's the second coming of Jesus. And I'm not kidding when I say that. I'm looking around this room and they're looking at this woman like it was unbelievable. And I'm sitting there going, why do we fascinate people the way we do? And then like this guy Don Lucci who is on here. I mean, Don Lucci is everything to white people. I mean, he's and I listen and I listen to his content and I listen to things that he say about black people. And the kid CJ Pearson, here's a little black kid that has never been in the black community. They've never done anything, but this kid can put something out about black people and they love it. So my thing is, what is it, bro? I mean, it's literally driving me crazy to the point to where I'm following somebody now to try to figure this thing out.
And this is why I think you're wasting your time, because it's not unique to black people. It's just not. Who's the guy who preaches? Wait. Who's the guy who preaches that nonsense about how God wants you to be rich? Who is that? The so-called Christian. What's his name?
Joel Osteen?
Joel Osteen. There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, the way those white folks were looking at Candace Owens, people who have decided to worship money and who are looking for a theological warrant to do that. Look at Joel Osteen the same way. I guarantee it. If you were to go to one of his shows or whatever they call them and look around, you would see that same goofy facial expression on the people looking at Joel Osteen. Because, is basically, like nothing feels better than getting validation that your sin is okay. That the thing that the thing that's fucked up about you is really fine, and that nothing feels better than that. That's why it's a temptation. That's why pride is the ultimate sin. Think about it, Rev. Think about it. Nothing feels better than saying, something. No, it's not that I'm bad. It's that no one else understands. Only I have the whatever. I'm the best. I'm the greatest. And this is what, and I have to. That's why pride is the greatest and the deadliest sin. Because once you get caught up in that feedback loop, it's almost impossible to break out of it. Well, that's what it is. That's all you're seeing. You're seeing these people, they've arrived at an idea. They like the idea. Because it combines their love of pornography with their worship of their own skin. And they can they can pay some money and go to a show and see a black person stand up and say, you know something, you're absolutely right. Well, to the prideful, to the person who is wrapped up in satanic pride, nothing sounds better than, hey, you're absolutely right. You're on the money 100%. Don't change a thing. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's what I'm saying. Seriously, I don't think of this as being something that's particular to black folks. I think you can find people who have that same kind of problem. Anything you can 100%. And if they can find someone who's going to stand up and tell them what they want to hear, they are delighted.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
But you just said it. But hold on. But what you just said, if they can find someone to stand up to tell them what they want to hear, but here's my curiosity. Why do you want to hear it? Why do you want to hear the downtrodden of black people? Why does that set you off? Make you wet?
That is a fix. That is a. I think that is an error in your analysis. It just so happens that this particular one is about black people. Other things about other things. In other words, everyone wants to hear that whatever they're doing is okay. That's what I'm trying to get at. Not everyone, but I mean, everyone likes to hear it. Now, some of us know how to resist that temptation. Some of us recognize that as a temptation. Hey, a second, I can't be around people who agree with me all the time. That's no good. I need a challenge. And if my belief system doesn't cost me anything, it's probably worthless. I said that to myself years ago when I was on the left, and I find myself kind of blaming white folks for everything. I'm like, hang on a second. Wait a minute. This isn't imposing any discipline on me. This isn't forcing me to do anything to improve myself, to gather skill sets. I'm just looping. I got to stop this. Any belief system that doesn't cost you is probably worthless. Okay. So that's the thing. I don't think it's a special thing about black people, except for that particular group of porn addicts. There are other porn addicts who are guilty, who have some other fixation, and they will be delighted to hear that their fixation is okay, and there's nothing wrong with them, because that's what pridefulness does to you. That's
right.
That's all. You
know? No, understood. Well, you know, with the black fatigue thing. That what people don't realize, it's just like woke, right? They took woke and just killed it. Well, the Black Fatigue is a book. It's actually a book that somebody wrote, and basically it was the Black Fatigue was meaning that racially black people are tired of actually having to fight exactly what they're doing right now, what people are doing. That's where Black Fatigue come from. So yet again, they can't even come up with words of their own to use. They find things that we have done and we have said, like they always do, and they stretch it to a point to where it doesn't even matter. I mean, everything is woke, right? Fox News taught them a word. And now they just went crazy with it.
Yeah.
Right.
But listen, I would say this. I would say I'm not even. I mean, I never heard about that book. I think that book came out while I was in here.
Yeah.
I would say that. Look, I mean, the way I come down, look, if you're tired of fighting, then stay home. But you know, it's like I'm tired sometimes, but I'm not tired of fighting it. That's the job. That's the job. That's my job. God made us men for a reason. So, I mean, I'm sorry that a black person thought it was worthwhile to actually put that in the book and said, "Oh, we're tired of fighting." You're tired of. Oh, what the hell does that mean? You know, look, it's like this is. You know, we're in the regime of trying to figure out trying to make our place like everyone else is trying to make their place in this society, in this world. and that requires a fight. Now, hopefully it's not a kinetic fight. Hopefully it's a political fight, but it's still a fight. That's life. That's it. Life itself is a struggle. It is. And you say, well, people get tired. Yes, they get tired. But to say, well, I'm tired of the struggle as such, listen, hell, this person wrote a book and presumably sold many copies and presumably made out pretty well from selling this book. So how tired are they really?
Yeah,
Right?
I don't know how many.
It's like, come on, I'm tired of how. Yeah, calm down. It's like, look,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
We have work to do as Black folks in this country, and part of the reason why we're not further ahead in the struggle is because we took our eyes off the prize. Let's be honest. Because at a certain point, some a bunch of well-off Black people decided that the white man's ice was colder.
Gatekeepers.
And that they'd rather be assistant vice president in someone else's enterprise than owner of their own. And look, that was their decision. Okay, fine. But yeah, if and at a certain point we decided that we were okay with the government giving out free money because you're Black. Oh, you're a Black person, so you're here for money.
Oh, wait a second. Wait now.
I'm sorry.
Now they wasn't handing out free money to a lot of Black people. They was handing out to a select.
Yeah, but
right?
I didn't say to a lot of Black people. I didn't say to a lot of Black people. I didn't say all. I said well. Remember what I said? Well-to-do.
Well-to-do Black people.
Right.
Got you. I got you.
By the way, and those are the ones that tend to write books about how they're tired of fighting. Isn't that odd? Those are the ones that tend to write books about how everything is terrible
right.
and you'll never make it, Black man, because everything is white. That's my fatigue, right? I'm tired of hearing I won't make it from Black folks who have made it. That's my fatigue.
Well, the very ones who've made it always turn around and tell the ones who haven't made it, well, you need to blame the white man for you not making it.
Well, there you go. That's
right.
That's
Here he is driving around in a nice car. But how did you get there? Oh, because the
car?
Right. The white man gave you money to get that car. But I'm gonna turn around and go, well, it's a white man's fault that you ain't done what you're supposed because you can't make it.
Okay. So again, the person who wrote that book wasn't too tired to write the book.
No.
They may have been tired of fighting, and again, those are Black people. First of all, I'm betting that person was never in my neighborhood. Was never, because you know what? Here's the interesting thing. Here's the really interesting thing. Is that if you hang around working class Americans long enough, and working class Black Americans are no exception. What you definitely don't get is this sense of spiritual fatigue that's alluded to by this book. What I get personally, is a sense of kind of amazing energy combined with kind of amazing civic patience. That's what I get. That's what I see when I talk to people. And again, I talk to working class people every chance I did when I was outside.
Right. Well, you still talk to working class people still now.
Well, that's true. And by the way, even in here, I don't hear people saying that shit in here. Isn't that funny? I mean, I'm in prison. I don't hear people saying that bullshit in here. And they're not in denial about the existence of racism, obviously, but cats are talking about, when I get out, I'm going to do this and that and whatever. I'm going to get my degree. I'm on this program. I want to do this vocational thing. I want to start a business. I want to do this. But that's what I hear people talking about in here. I don't hear people talking, I'm tired of having this da-da-da with white people. I've never heard that in prison. So, I've never seen the book. I don't want to be too unfair to the author, but I kind of right away, probably not. But no, going back to what we were talking about, Rev, in terms of your fascination with these cats, with these porn addicts, I mean, listen, someone may at some point find a way to break them out of that pornography addiction. Maybe that someone will be you. But again, I would just point out that I would just remind you that, again, this is not something new and it's not something unique to race relations. This is
right.
this is, again, pornography addiction is a general problem, and idolatry, in the sense of worshiping your own skin, is a general problem, and the sin of pride is a general problem, and the sin of resentment is a general problem, to the extent that the second oldest story in the book is about how the sin of resentment, right, tempted one brother into killing another. So that's a very old story.
Yeah.
That's all, you know.
I get it. I'm just one of those persons when, when things pop up,
like a dog with a bone.
I gotta figure it. I gotta figure it out. What is it about us that makes people just to the point where they will spend, hours. You know what I mean?
People have disposable. People have time on their hands and disposable income. Yeah, they'll spend hours doing. People spend hours stamp collecting.
Well,
I'm doing all kinds of things.
Well, I'm also
looking. Put it this way. Tell me, I'm sorry. Go on.
No. I'm saying I also look at some of these so-called black influencers, how they use
the same way.
How they use the black community. They ain't never been in the. You know what? This is what I always say, because I've got one here.
Mm-hmm.
I got one here in Minnesota. Who ain't never been in the black community, don't come around the black community. The black community don't mess with him at all. But yet, when certain so-called news people need to talk about, they go to him. Yeah. They go to the right. You understand what I'm saying? They go to the very person that ain't got nothing to do with the black community. He has nothing. But yet he's speaking on the black community.
Well, listen. First of all, again, this is, I guess, I understand why that annoys you. It annoys me, but I'm just saying, it's like, to me, it's not really, it's unfortunate, but that's ultimately it's his problem. It's the problem of the media, who are lazy after all. Look, it's the same way. It's the same way how people, like, all these people want to find out, all these Republicans supposedly want to find out how to get traction with black people, whatever, but they don't want to come and talk to us.
Right.
They'd rather talk to Candace Owens or Larry Elder or Jason Whitlock. It's like, and why? Because, listen, again, this is what I say. They don't know because they don't want to know. They don't care to know. That's all. It's because, listen, they can do the job, it's half-assed, and they can pick up a paycheck just fine with the current formula, right? Okay, so have you ever heard of a lazy person doing more than what is required? No. Okay, so people who are out of energy and out of ideas and are not that smart to begin with, of course they're going to do the easiest thing always. And you're going to have that 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000. Like, wait a minute, there's a deeper story here. Let me go, and that guy, God bless him, but most of them aren't like that. Well, of course, because they're lazy and not that bright. No. That's it. Yeah. That's it, right? How many times have you and I heard Republicans crying like bitches about how well we can't get that, but they don't take the time to do the ordinary, plain old, basic things that any reasonable person would think you have to do to get traction, like go and talk to people. No, we can't do that. We can't do that. And listen, in the age of social media, especially, no excuse. So that's what I say is, like, I've kind of I've kind of given up on trying to understand those things. It's just like I have an analysis that seems to fit the facts well, but in terms of delving into the mindset of, I'm not interested. Again, because again, a porn addict is not interested in women. Someone who gets off on some chick with her tits out and with the high heels and the camisole and this and that one, is like, is he interested in women really? Has he ever actually met women really? No. And he doesn't want to meet women. Why would he? He can keep magnifying that fragment and getting off on it. Why would he be interested in talking to an actual woman who might present him some problems? Who might cuss him out? Who might argue with him? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, of course he's not going to do that. Not a chance. Okay, same thing with these people. Listen, I want to tell you something, because we're getting down to the wire here, but I want to tell you something interesting, which was so you're talking about these guys who are going around and finding these clips. Well, I said the worst instance of that was I was in Telegram, I was in this space, or in Telegram or something. Anyway, talking to this one of these skin worshipers. And, oh, black people are this, whatever. So I'm saying, and I'm like, listen, I don't, you're not going to shock me or upset me. You believe that. I think your math is bad. Here's why. Okay. So then this same person, she goes to she DMs me, right, a screenshot. Because what I was saying was, look, you're in no danger of getting mugged by black stockbrokers coming home from work. That's just dumb. That's manifestly retarded to believe that, like, black stockbrokers are gonna pull out a pistol and mug you on the way. That's stupid. Stop it. And so in an attempt to refute me, she actually posted me some screenshot of statistics and how, like, the crime stats in wealthy black neighborhoods are just as high as the crime stats and I'm like, and so I'm looking at this thing, I'm like, that's interesting. And I'm like, let me see if I can find the original thing that the screenshot was taken from. So I'm like, hey, where'd you get the screenshot from? Oh, the Bureau of Justice, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I've downloaded that document. This doesn't look familiar. Let me go and pull up my copy. Which year is it? Oh, it's this year. I go and I'm like, well, wait a second. This table doesn't even look right. The data bins are all wrong. The numbers are wrong. It's like nothing. This is like nothing in that actual section of the real document. Then she says, well, I'm not gonna do your work for you. Good luck. And then she, like, disappears.
Yeah. She
made up a fragment of a spreadsheet. She made it up and took a screenshot and sent it to me. That's what happened. I mean, that's how. That's some crazy shit, right?
Now
I'm like, look, if you, I'm telling look, if you can show me, if I see if the facts change, if I get new evidence that's compelling, I'll change my mind. She's like, yeah, check this out. He's like, wow, you made up an infographic, or rather a spreadsheet, and sent it to me. And then, obviously, because you couldn't justify when I said, yes, this document that you say it's from, it's not from that document. Which page are we looking at? I'm looking at the table on page 75. What page are you looking at? I'm not going to do your work for you. But look, bye. Right? So that was, against that kind of crazy, against what I'm saying is, Rev, against that kind of crazy, is it not better to just say, oh, well, and move on?
Yeah.
This is not crazy.
we can do that, but I just don't have that type mind, dude. I got to crack the nut.
You got a Sherlock Holmes mind.
Right, I got
a Sherlock Holmes mind. You got to detect that shit.
I've got two things.
I'm looking for clues.
I got two things on my mind to try to figure out how I can get some of these here little boys to stop running around here sticking a little thing in these girls and getting them pregnant. And we don't. We got all these here, young kids having babies in the black community. That's been my fight for I don't know how long. How do we get some of these boys to realize and understand that that's not what God gave them that thing for. You don't understand what I'm saying?
You got to attack the supply side. I think you got to go to the young women. You got to figure out how to get the young women thinking about themselves in a different way. Then the young women will be like, "Yeah, no, you better get it together because it's not happening." You never, because here's the thing. Ironically, this is I'm glad you said this is a very interesting thing. Think about it. These religious traditions, cultural traditions, and very much Christian traditions of modesty, chastity. Okay, these were manifestly designed, right, to protect women from the bad tendencies in men. In other words, right, it's like the people who rightly said, young girls should dress modestly and they should, preserve themselves from marriage. They should insist on that extravagant promise of marriage. They should insist on loyalty and insist on these things, right? Why did they do this? To oppress women? Don't be ridiculous. That's nonsense. They did it to protect them from the bad qualities of men. In other words, they took the bad qualities of men as a fixed point, right? As a basic. And so young men, if there is no disincentive to doing it, if nothing prevents them, yeah, they're going to keep doing it, of course. If young men can go out and find young women who are willing to take up with them just because, then that's exactly what they'll do over and over and over and over again. Just like how just like the thing of how to get these young men to stop sagging their pants. Get it so that women won't talk to you if your pants are sagging. That should be going tomorrow. Yeah, Rev. I just admitted me chime in. But yeah, man. Good to be with you as always. So,
yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. So we're gonna go ahead on and end this for tonight. Well, you know what? Next week, let me do this here because, like I said, it's according to how many games they win, how long we're gonna stay over there. Because I could be back here. I could be back, but I'll let Carl know what the deal is on that.
Let him know, and yeah, we'll do our thing.
And sounds like a deal.
All right. Have a good night. God
Appreciate
bless.
you, Dad. Hey, God bless you, man. He's got you. So we're going to stay with you also.
Thank you for using Securus. Goodbye.
There we go. Dexter we're done for tonight. Hey, Carl.
Yes, sir.
Oh, there he is. Hey, so like I said, I don't know how things are going to run next Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So if the kids keep winning, then we'll probably be over there late, and I don't want to try to rush back and try to jump on here. But if we get back in time,
no worries.
I'll let you know what's going on. Did you have anything to say on the night before we get off this thing? What do you got going on?
I'll keep it short. I want to thank everybody for listening. You guys make the show popular. We getting a lot of people listening to Dexter speak. I just want to thank everybody for participating, sharing the space. I mean, not sharing the space, but sharing the links to the show, and continue to do what you guys been doing. Get the word out about this story. Get it out to the necessary people. Pam Bondi, the little lady's name. Can't think of her name right now.
I should ask.
I think her name is Harmy Dillon.
Okay, yeah. I think you got it. Check you out.
Yeah. So continue to do that. Also, post about Dexter. I mean, if you got something to say that you are passionate about, no matter if it's a short tweet or long tweet or long social media post, short social media post, doesn't matter. Somebody will see it, ask questions about it, and you can be able to, point them in the right direction. Also, share some links under the stream. That is to Dexter's Linktree. It has all of his interviews, his website, his legal fund, all of that other stuff on that link, all in one place, so you can check it out. Let us know what you think. Let him know what you think under his Twitter account. It has a link to his Twitter too.
Did you put for the phone calls? Because what people don't understand is Carl has also these phone calls from Dexter cost money. Is what I'm getting at. Did you put that on here too, Carl?
I haven't, but I can show post. So I can show people where to go if they want to help pay for the phone calls. It's a little money symbol on my Twitter page. It's right next to the bell symbol if you wanted to turn on my notifications. If you go to that, it'll take you directly to my Cash App and you donate to it, whatever, 5, 10, 15, no matter whatever you can donate, even if it's like $2, it helps. I put it towards his account for phone calls, and he's able to call me, and I can patch him through. Also, I wanted to tell everybody that I bought some equipment. This equipment will allow me to bring Dexter into spaces, kind of like how Joe's equipment is. It's literally the same thing he has. So I'm still trying to configure it so I can do that. So we can bring him into spaces more often so you can hear him more often in addition to, Reverend Tim's show. So,
Awesome.
Once that get worked out, we'll be in the midst.
Awesome. Yeah, that'll work. Hey, and we was talking about Joe Lanou was talking about come and hang out with us too, one of these Sundays.
Yeah. One of the, whenever Joe's schedule is free,
okay,
he has informed me that he will join us, and I know Joe has some good takes and can explain some legal perspective, just like lawyer Joe did.
Yeah.
So he'll be a good guest. So I'm working on that behind the scenes too.
Okay. Well, hey, then I'll just stand down and let you do your thing.
All right,
with that situation. So, well, we appreciate you, Carl.
No worries.
Thank you very much. How's the family? Everybody good?
Family's good. Baby's down to sleep after having a little, cranky day today. Mom is doing her thing.
This call will be recorded. This call is no longer being recorded.
Sorry, I hit a button here on my phone.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's family's doing good.
That's awesome. That sounds great. Well, I appreciate you, man. I thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and jump off this here thing. I got to call my grandson because he had an awesome weekend, and he had 3 games this weekend, and he did awesome. So I got to get a hold of him here real quick before he knocks himself out, and we'll go from there. So I appreciate you, Carl. Thank you very much. And we thank each and every one of you who took the time out to come in and hang out with us on tonight, just to listen to me and Dexter say what we wanted, what we say, and things of that sort. So thank you very much, and we ask God to keep his hand on Dexter while he's in there, and look over him and make sure that nothing happens to this man, because this is a travesty what we're going through right now with him, and we're doing everything we possibly can do to get his name out there, so people somebody who cares and can jump on this situation and take it from there and do with it what we believe should be done, is get this man out of jail, get him out of prison, get him home to his family and to his daughter. No ifs, no ands, no buts. But fam, y'all have a good one. I've got to go eat. I didn't even get a chance to eat. I just ran in the house and we jumped on here and the whole 9. But I will not be here on Monday. We got baseball starting up, so they got a baseball game. I got a soccer game Monday. I got to leave the soccer game and then drive all the way to the baseball game. So I will not be here. More than likely, I will be here Tuesday if everything goes well. I do ask for prayer because tomorrow I have to go in to get a nuclear stress test. That's what I'm doing on tomorrow. And I pray to God that everything goes well. So I'm asking for prayer to go out to me on today. So if you are a praying somebody, I do not turn down blessings. So I ask you for your prayer. But yeah, I got to have a nuclear stress test on tomorrow. But y'all have a good one. Again, peace, fam. God bless each and every one of you. And we out.